حبيب الرحمة نبي السلام خاتم الرسل هو خير الأنام يطيب بذكره كل لسان أهداء من أفنى جهلا وضلال.
Once upon a time ago, our story began. But before we begin, let's send salam on our final prophet.
Sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
We last left off and some of the Muslims had left Mecca. They had left their homes and beautiful city which they loved dearly and which had the Kaaba and had gone all the way to Al-Habasha. But why had they left? The Muslims had left not because they wanted to, but because they were forced to. Things had gotten so bad in Mecca. The evil kuffar would stop at nothing to make the Muslims leave Islam. They hurt the Muslims and were very, very mean to them. They kept trying to get the Muslims to go back to worshipping the idols. So, a big group of Muslims left Mecca and went to Al-Habasha. There they were safe. The king was very good to them. He was fair and just to everyone. Who remembers what the name of this king was? It was Al-Najashi, the king of Al-Habasha. When the kuffar in Mecca realized that so many Muslims had gone to Al-Habasha, they got very angry. They chose two people who were excellent speakers, Amr ibn al-As and Abdullah bin Abi Rabi'a, to talk to the king to convince him to send the Muslims back. They brought with them lots of expensive gifts to bribe the king and his advisors too. During that time, Al-Najashi was actually a Christian, but he was looking for the right path to Allah. When Amr ibn al-As and Abdullah bin Abi Rabi'a talked to him, they told him, "Some of our foolish people have come to your country. They left the religion of their forefathers, and they didn't follow your religion either. No, they started following a whole new religion. A religion you've never heard of, and we've never heard of either. So the leaders and noblemen of our country have sent us here to take those people back. We will know how to deal with them." The king's advisors, who had just received their gifts, agreed with Amr and Abdullah, saying, "What those people said is true. It's best that you hand the Muslims over to these two men and let them return back to their country." But the king was a very good king. He was fair. He knew that he could not judge between people without hearing both sides. So the king brought the Muslims to him, and he asked them, "What is this new religion that you have chosen to follow, and that has made you leave the religion of your forefathers, and that you have chosen over my religion, Christianity?" The Muslims had decided between themselves that they would only speak the truth, and they had chosen Ja'far, who was the Prophet's cousin. He was the son of Abu Talib, to speak for them. He answered Al-Najashi, saying, "O king, we were living in Mecca with our families, and we were all worshipping idols and fake gods. We didn't know what was right. We used to do everything that was bad. We didn't take care of our family ties. We annoyed our neighbors. The strong hurt the weak. We were mean and unfair to each other. We stayed like this until Allah sent us a prophet, Prophet Mohammed. We had always known him to be the most honest and trustworthy one of us. He taught us what was right and to do good. He taught us that idols cannot help us, and that we have to worship Allah alone, and we have to pray only to Allah. He taught us to say the truth and be trustworthy, to return to people their things and not take something that wasn't ours. He taught us to be good and kind to our relatives. He taught us to love our neighbors and help them. He taught us not to hurt the weak or the orphans, to think about their feelings and to help and love them. So we listened to Prophet Mohammed and we believed in him. But our people, the kuffar, who still worshipped the idols, did not leave us alone. They attacked us and hurt us and tried to make us go back to worshipping idols. So we came to you in Al-Habasha because we had heard that you were a fair and just king and that you give everyone their rights. The king looked at Ja'far and said, "Tell me some of the words of Allah that your prophet has taught you. Read to me from the Quran." So Ja'far recited some Quran. He recited from Surah Maryam.
كافها يا عين صاد ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا.
كافها يا عين صاد. This is a mention of the mercy of your Lord to his servant Zechariah when he called to his Lord a private supplication. He said, "My Lord, indeed my bones have weakened, and my head has filled with white, and never have I been in my supplication to you, my Lord, unhappy." When al-Najashi heard the surah, he was moved to tears. He was so impressed by the beautiful words of the Quran. Al-Najashi's advisors also had tears in their eyes. Al-Najashi looked at his advisors and said, "The words that we have just heard right now and the words of our master Isa come from the same light." He meant from the same Lord. He told the Muslims, "I will never send you back to the kuffar. You are welcome to stay here in safety. Go back to your homes." And he did not look at Amr bin al-As and Abdullah bin Rabi'a. And so Amr and Abdullah left the king, but they were furious and angry that the king had sided with the Muslims. As soon as they had left the king's court, Amr looked at Abdullah and said, "I swear tomorrow I'm going to go back to the king and tell him something that if he finds out, he will kill the Muslims." But Abdullah advised him against the idea. "Even if we disagree with the Muslims, don't forget they are our family members and relatives," he reminded him. Amr, though, was adamant that he would do his plan and that he would go back to the king and talk to him. The next day, Amr ibn al-As went to the king al-Najashi and he told him, "O king, do you know what these Muslims are saying about Isa? They're saying something terrible." Again, al-Najashi would not judge until he had heard both sides. Again, he called the Muslims to come and explain themselves. He asked them, what did they say about Isa? And this time, the Muslims answered again from the Quran.
واذكر في الكتاب مريم إذ انتبذت من أهلها مكانا شرقيا فاتخذت من دونهم حجابا فأرسلنا إليها روحنا فتمثل لها بشرا سويا قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت تقيا قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا قالت أنى يكون لي غلام ولم يمسسني بشر ولم أك بغيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين ولنجعله آية للناس ورحمة منا وكان أمرا مقضيا.
And she took in seclusion from them a screen. Then we sent to her our angel, and he represented himself to her as a well-proportioned man. She said, Indeed, I seek refuge in the most merciful from you, so leave me if you should be fearing of Allah. He said, I am only the messenger of your Lord to give you news of a pure boy. She said, How can I have a boy while no man has touched me and I have not been unchaste? He said, Thus it will be. Your Lord says, It is easy for me, and we will make him a sign to the people and a mercy from us, and it is a matter already decreed. Ja'far bin Abi Talib explained, We say of Isa what Prophet Muhammad taught us to say about Isa. We say that Isa is a servant of Allah, a prophet of Allah, a spirit of Allah, a word of Allah delivered to Maryam. He meant that Allah created Isa by saying be, and that he was a human being, just like how Allah created Adam. He explained that Prophet Isa was never arrogant and would never scorn being a servant to Allah and worshipping him. How could he when he was a prophet chosen by Allah? The Muslims love all of the messengers and prophets of Allah and do not differentiate between them. King Najashi then took a tiny stick of oud from the ground, just about the size of a toothpick from the ground, and said something that meant, What you have said about Isa is true, and you have not even added as much as this tiny toothpick. I swear by Allah, the Christ did not say more than you are saying. When his advisors heard him say that, they began to protest. Many of them worshipped Isa. They took him as God. Al-Najashi looked at them and said, Even if you raise your voices, this is the truth. He then turned to the Muslims and said, Go back to your homes. You are safe in my land. Whoever says hurtful things to you, he is the one who will be a loser. I swear that if they give me a mountain of gold to hurt just one of you, I would not accept it and will not allow it. I will never send you back to the kuffar. Al-Najashi then looked at his guards and said, Return the gifts to the two men. And so the two men, Amr ibn al-As and Abdullah bin Abi Rabi'ah, had to return back to Mecca empty-handed. They returned furious and angry that the Muslims had once again escaped them.
يطيب بذكره كل لسان أهداء من أفنى جهلا وضلال